While Americans are struggling financially, in fact, 64% are living paycheck to paycheck thanks to inflation, the fine people over in Idaho, the state legislature has decided to focus on what really matters: jailing librarians over books they don't like. There you have it. The so-called free speech right has decided to target librarians, again, over books they don't like. So this has to do with a trend we're seeing across the country. But let's focus on what this particular legislation would do. Following a long debate, the Idaho House voted 51-14 to pass House Bill 666. If passed into law, the bill would remove an exemption that protects libraries, schools, museums, colleges, and universities and their employees for disseminating material that is harmful to minors. So if they're found to be violating this law, they could have to spend time in prison or even pay a $1,000 fine. The Idaho law explicitly defines as harmful to minors various acts, including masturbation. Let's just stop telling people not to masturbate. Like, it's so creepy. It's the creepiest thing in the world. It's the creepiest thing in the world that like anyone thinks about anyone else masturbating unless it's your partner or spouse and it gets you like hot and bothered, okay? Stop thinking about other people masturbating. Stop trying to police it. Stop trying to stop education about it. It's so weird and creepy, the right wing doesn't even realize how weird and creepy they are.
Yeah, so if they have a book that mentions it, these creeps come in and then go, you're encouraging teenagers to masturbate because they need so much encouragement. Like they couldn't figure it out on their own.
No, it's amazing.
It's never happened. So they're like, they weren't gonna do it, but then you had that book in the library. And so they went to the library, found the book, and that's what encouraged them to do it. So I'm gonna put you in prison.
Let me make this very clear to right-wingers, especially right-wingers who push for stuff like this. As an adult, it is very weird and very creepy that you spend any time concerning yourself about the masturbation habits of teenagers. Find a hobby, and more importantly, stop putting this out in the world. It weirds me out. The fact they don't see it is crazy.
But no, they're perverts. That's why
it's a weird, perverted thing that they're obsessed with.
Yeah, since the right wing are perverts, they project that onto the left wing, and they're like, oh, I assume you guys are thinking the same dirty thoughts I am about kids. So I've got to stop you guys from thinking that. No, dude, you are. And so, and of course now the free speech issue. Dave Rubin wrote a book called Don't Burn This Book.
No one cared to burn your book, bitch.
Yeah, no one bothered because no one bought it. But now all those free speech advocates, Dave Rubin, Glenn Greenwald, Ben Shapiro, all those guys, are they going nuts over this?
No.
They're trying to ban books, man. Cancel culture. There goes freedom of speech.
No, they want to punish librarians. If the libraries have books they don't like. Let me finish that graphic, by the way. However, the Idaho law also states the law doesn't apply to any matter which, when considered as a whole and in context in which it is used, possesses serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors according to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors. So basically what they want to do with this legislation is essentially like do away with those exceptions, right? They're like, no, even if it has these values and even if there's a point to covering something or writing about something having to do with masturbation or other things we don't like, purportedly don't like, don't buy it. We want to ensure that there's no like protected employees here, right? So librarians could face penalties as a result of having or distributing this material.
So the reason the exception exists in the first place is they have the rule already. It's a misdemeanor to give this kind of material to a minor. But they make an exception because if you're in health class and they're teaching sex education, you don't want the teacher arrested, or there's a literary book that has a mild sexual reference. You don't want the English teacher or the librarian arrested. And in this case, they're taking away that protection, and they would literally imprison librarians, who of course are the real scourge in this country. They're causing all the real problems.
I mean, we got to get those librarians, right?
Yeah. It's not the political donor class. It's not the bankers. It's not the oil companies, it's not the defense contractors. The real problem in America, according to the right wing, is the librarians.
It's insane.
They're a joke. They're a national embarrassment.
So backers of this legislation, remember we talked about how creepy they are. It's about to get creepier, okay? Backers of this legislation distributed material they said came from public libraries to House members in the state of Idaho, right? They described the material as being in a super secret folder. I bet it is.
Who's keeping the super secret folder? Who is it? Name them.
Not considered suitable for viewing on the House floor.
Well, they're passing that super secret folder around. These perverts, they found a normal book.
As it was passed from one member of the House to the next. All right, sorry, I apologize. Too far, too far. How creepy is this though? I'm the one who's going too far. They're like bragging about their super secret folder of like sexy material. And they're like, oh, this is so wrong.
They're like, oh no, it's super secret,
so wrong,
super secret.
So wrong. Super
okay,
secret.
I'll bring this back to you.
By the way, I need those papers.
Okay, and by the way, and they're like, hey, I got a super secret folder from a naughty librarian. Yeah, I know, guys. You're concerned about people getting too sexual. I hear you. Yeah.
So, and then of course there are super dramatic Republicans who are like, this is what they do, right? The manufactured culture wars. Like this is all they have. It's their bread and butter. They never want to address issues that actually impact the lives of their constituents. They just manufacture problems that don't exist. So one Republican representative, Bruce Skaug, says this: I would rather my 6-year-old grandson start smoking cigarettes tomorrow than get a view of this stuff one time at the public library.
There's something wrong with you, dude. Look, so I have kids, and so for example, one of the things they're mental about, these right wingers in Idaho, is, oh my God, don't let them know that there's gay people in the world. Well, I got news for you. They're gonna find out because there's gay people in the world. And their heads are not going to explode. Maybe something exploded on your end, and that's why you've been burying it, and you have all this insecurity and complexes, etc. But so what happens when you tell kids that there are gay people in the world? I did it. Nothing happens. And did they turn gay? No, because they have a certain nature, and they're like, oh, okay. Sometimes there's two, wives. Sometimes there's two dads. So what? Nothing happens. On the other hand, if I started my 6-year-old smoking cigarettes, they're gonna get lung cancer and they're gonna die. And they would rather live in this perverse, insane world where they're like, oh, if we just hate gay people enough and we hate sex enough. I mean, we have a secret folder, but if we do, then everything's gonna be great. Cancer, who cares? I mean, they're just nuts. It's so embarrassing to be a right winger. I don't know how anybody ever walks out the door.
I mean, they proudly wave that creep flag, and that's the thing that really gets to me. By the way, we're talking about public libraries. We're not talking about curriculum in schools. They've gotten to a point where they're now trying to ban books in public libraries that they do not like. So if you have a curiosity, if there's a certain book you want to read, but right wingers have deemed it inappropriate, very, very naughty, okay? We like to keep this content in our super secret folder, okay? But that's the only place it exists. That's what they want. This is the kind of censorship that's taking place. And what I think is so interesting is we have obviously these two different parties, right? You have the Republican Party that makes a big to-do about censorship whenever someone like Alex Jones, who's inciting violence against Sandy Hook parents who lost their children, he gets censored on social media, and it's a big disgrace. Everyone needs to be outraged about it. But when real censorship, actual censorship happens by the right wing, what's the response from Democrats? Where's the Democratic Party? Do they draw attention to this? Do they say that it is outrageous that this censorship is taking place? No, they just let it go. They just let it go. It happens all the time. So they create a space for these bad faith actors, the so-called, free speech warriors who actually couldn't care less about free speech, people like Glenn Greenwald, honestly. They create that space for them to pretend like they care about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, when in reality, they're always quiet on this kind of censorship. When the right wing does it, it's totally fine because my daddy, Peter Thiel, says it's totally fine. Let's keep it real, all right? He's making quite a bit of money working for companies that are funded by Peter Thiel. So all all of a sudden it's totally okay to be supportive of right-wing censorship. But when the left or when a corporation decides they want to ban someone like Alex Jones, we can't have it because it's a slippery slope. Pretty soon they're gonna start censoring leftists. I have news for you. They've been doing that. They've been doing that for a long time, but they're quiet about it.
Yeah, by the way, Glenn Greenwald and Dave Rubin are both gay. They're out, and they claim that, that they're proud of it, etc. Yet when Republicans go to ban books for even mentioning gay people, all of a sudden those free speech advocates can't find Twitter. They couldn't find their phone to do a tweet.
Weird.
They can't go on Bill Maher and complain about right-wing censorship and cancel culture. And idiots like Bill Maher are constantly talking about it as if it's just a left-wing phenomenon. And they ignore all of this right-wing cancel culture ad nauseum. And why? And do that against your own people? Republicans think that even mentioning your existence is disgusting and should be banned from the precious ears. Kids shouldn't hear it. And they're like, yeah, but did the check clear?
Exactly. That's what it always goes back to.
So that's who Dave Rubin and Glenn Greenwald are. Sick, disgusting. And now one more thing, guys, on the absurdity front. Libraries? You think that's where kids are getting sexual material? Okay, Mr. 1955. There's something called the internet. Like the kids were making a beehive to the library to find sexual material. We couldn't get them to go to the library if our lives depended on it, okay?
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're on the internet, you idiots. You think that the internet can be contained? That they're not gonna get sexual material there, and that what's really corrupting them is those naughty librarians?
No, you don't. I mean, there is this prevalence of children going to the library looking for pornographic material. I mean, come on. All right, one final thing. I think this quote from Huda Shaltri is important. She's a librarian. She attended the hearing for this legislation. She said this: I would just like to point out that this bill is not to get books out of the library. This bill is to criminalize library workers. We are not talking about censorship and removing these books. We are talking about criminalizing library workers if minors get these books.
And so what'll happen is librarians, as one of the writers pointed out, not a notoriously risk-taking group, right? So will be conservative, not in politics, but in nature. And understandably so. Why? They're just a librarian. It's not like it's like the world's highest paying job or anything like that. And all of a sudden they're gonna risk imprisonment?
I don't get what
they're gonna take away almost all of those books. Any book that has the word sex in it in any way, shape, or form, they're gonna do a purge of the books at the library, and the right wing's gonna celebrate as they complain about cancel culture. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.